Think about the last time you cooked something. Maybe you boiled water. Maybe you fried an egg. Maybe you just warmed something up. You probably did not think much of it. But cooking is not a small thing. It is arguably the single act that separated us from every other creature that has ever walked this planet. Not language. Not tools. Not even fire by itself. Cooking. The deliberate, intentional application of heat to food, for a reason beyond just warmth. And the story of how it started, and what it actually did to us, is one of those things that once you hear it, you cannot stop thinking about it. When we imagine ancient humans eating, we picture them tearing into raw meat around a fire. And yes, fire was part of the story. But the real question was never just whether ancient humans had fire. The real question was whether they were using that fire to deliberately prepare their food. Intentionally. With thought behind it. There is a site in Israel, next to what used to be a large lake, a lake that does not exist anymore. At that site, researchers found the remains of a large fish. And when they looked closely at the teeth of that fish, they could tell something had happened to it before it was eaten. The crystals inside fish teeth change their structure when they are exposed to controlled heat. Not a bonfire. Not open flame. Steady, measured warmth. The kind you apply when you know what you are doing. And those crystals told the story clearly. That fish had been cooked. Carefully. On purpose. 780,000 years ago. The creature that cooked it was not us. It was Homo erectus. An ancestor that came long before modern humans even existed. And that ancestor, standing at the edge of a lake that has since disappeared from the earth, already knew that food prepared with heat was better than food eaten raw. That is not primitive. That is knowledge. But how do you cook something when you do not have a pot? When ceramic has not been invented yet? When the only materials you have are what the land gives you? Ancient humans figured this out in a way that sounds almost impossible until you think about it. They used animal stomachs. After a hunt, the stomach of the animal was not thrown away. It was kept, filled with water and food. And then hot stones, pulled straight from the fire, were dropped inside it. The stones transferred their heat into the water. The water began to boil. The food inside cooked. The stomach held everything together without burning, because the liquid kept the temperature from destroying it. They were boiling food in the body of the animal they had just hunted. The cooking pot and the meal came from the same creature. There is something in that which is both practical and deeply connected to nature in a way that modern cooking has completely lost. They were not just cooking to fill their stomachs. They were cooking because they cared how food tasted. Inside ancient cooking pots found at sites in Denmark and Germany, pots that are around 6,000 years old, researchers found traces of garlic mustard seeds inside the charred residue. Garlic mustard is intensely peppery. It adds almost nothing in terms of calories. You use it purely for flavor. And these hunter-gatherers, who had no farms, no spice trade, no market, were deliberately adding it to their food. That is not survival behavior. That is a preference. That is someone deciding that food should taste good, not just exist. In caves that people lived in for tens of thousands of years, occupied by both Neanderthals and early humans across a span of nearly 60,000 years, there were burnt remains of actual prepared dishes. Not just roasted meat. Not just a tuber thrown near flame. Bread, patties, porridge, multi-ingredient combinations, where different plants and grains were mixed together before being cooked. And here is the detail that sits with you. Many of those plants were bitter. In modern cooking, we remove the bitter parts. We soak them, peel them, process them until the sharpness is gone. But these ancient cooks did not remove the bitterness completely. They left some in, on purpose. They wanted that edge in the flavor. They were balancing a dish, not just filling a stomach. That is a cook. That is someone who thinks about what they are making. Around 1.8 million years ago, something started happening to the human body. Their teeth got smaller. Their digestive systems shrank. And their brains got dramatically larger. All of this happened in the same general window of time. When you cook food, the heat breaks down the tough fibers. It softens everything. Your body no longer has to work as hard to extract energy from what you eat. The gut, which is an expensive organ to run, no longer needs to be massive to handle raw, tough vegetation. So it shrank. And all that energy the body was spending on a large gut got redirected into the brain. We did not develop larger brains and then start cooking as a result of being clever. We started cooking, and that is what gave our brains the fuel to grow. The kitchen, in a sense, built the mind. About 20,000 years ago, pottery was invented. And it did not just change how people cooked. It saved people who would otherwise have died. Before pottery, if you lost your teeth, you were in serious trouble. You could still roast meat, but you could not make it soft enough to survive on without the ability to chew. But once you had a pot, you could turn almost anything into something drinkable. Soups, broths, soft porridge, food you did not need teeth to eat. And this is exactly what the bones show. After pottery spreads, there are adult skeletons in the archaeological record with no teeth at all. Not a single one. People who had lost every tooth in their head and kept living anyway, for years, because a clay pot had become their jaw. Stone Age people who lived 7,000 years ago were cooking from recipes. Not written down. Not in any book. Passed from person to person, generation to generation. At one site, certain berries only ever appeared inside cooking pots, always with fish, never anywhere else in the remains of the camp. Someone had decided that those two things belonged together. And that decision got passed down. It became a dish. A tradition. A meal people recognized. The first recipes were not written with ink. They were taught with hands, over fire, in languages we no longer speak. Every time you cook something, you are doing something that reaches back almost a million years. The instinct to prepare food, to season it, to make it taste like something worth eating, that did not begin with cookbooks or restaurants or cooking shows. It began at the edge of a lake that no longer exists, with an ancestor who understood, without being taught, that heat changes everything. And here we still are, doing the same thing.